good morning, or afternoon, or whatever time of day that this video lands in your viewership. My name is Kristian Contreras. My gender pronouns are she, her, and I serve the National Women's Studies as its executive director. I'm here after many trials and tribulations, friends. We have rescheduled this wonderful conversation more than a dozen times, I feel, but I'm a qualitative researcher. The quantitative stuff, I'm gonna support y'all. But we also had this conversation last week and I forgot to hit record. What a concept. But we're here to discuss the newest publication from our 22nd Association President, Heidi R. Lewis, Make Rappers Rap Again, Interrogating the Mumble Rap Crisis. And this is the first book in the Oxford University Press series of Theorizing African American Music. There are three books already in the world, and this is part of a larger conversation. I'm really excited, minus all the trials and tribulations, of course, to talk with you because this book leaves me with a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts that are kind of mirrored back to myself as a person who consumes, loves, and then in my mind interrogates all of the elements of hip hop culture and rap that has raised me. Now, President Lewis, I'd love to toss it back to you to share any thoughts you might have on the grounding of this conversation before I pepper you with my 400 questions.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm so excited to do this. Trials and tribulations and all. Yes, Kristian forgot to hit record, but as I told her when it happened, I did a whole interview with Michael Kimmel on the Feminist Wire and forgot to hit record and had to go back to this man who I did not know at all and say, could you please do it again? And he said yes and did it. And I agree with you that if I were you, I would feel like this was worse because I do know you. But honey, please, it was mortifying for this man to get to know me through this faux pas.
We learn and we grow. I think this is a beautiful example of taking accountability and professionalism, but that's neither here nor there.
We're humans. We're humans. I'm excited and I'm so thankful to be doing this with you.
Thank you. Now, folks, I had the pleasure of reading different snippets of Make Rappers Rap Again, Interrogating the Mumble Rap Crisis in quotations. Did I say parentheses or again earlier?
No, you said quotations.
I promise you, I have a bachelor's in English literature. I promise you.
Me too.
Funny. But I had the absolute pleasure of reading small iterations of Make Rappers Rap Again throughout the year. And so I've been having this conversation with Heidi unbeknownst to her when I'm driving in the car, listening to music, when I'm cleaning and light that last candle, to bring the process all to the end. Because I grew up with a father who was a professional DJ. And so my lullabies were not Humpty Dumpty. It was, and I said a hip, the hip, the hip, hip. I won't.
Yeah, because he's old too.
He's older. I'll tell him. But I would love to know, as someone who
Yes.
is entrenched in feminist
Yes.
scholarship, real life activism, cultural work, and then just loving practice, I'd love to talk about how this book came to be. Like, what is your story of arrival, and how did we get here with this iteration of the text?
Yes. Thank you so much for that question. I write about this a little bit in the acknowledgments. I had tried to author a single author manuscript or at least to get ready to do that during my third year review sabbatical, and it didn't happen. I got a great article out of it. The article I wrote about Rihanna's Poured Up came out of that. So many things actually did come out of that, but not a book, not a single author book. So at that point, I sort of became this person who started to believe that a single author manuscript wasn't something that I would do. I didn't have to be promoted to tenure or even full professor at Colorado College. I could do a series of articles and other things. And I just felt like, okay, it's not in me. But like other articles I'd written, the idea for this came out of my personal experience with mumble rap. I was enjoying it and I was paying attention to the discourse. And the discourse wasn't, rarely was the discourse about mumble rap consistent with the way that I was experiencing it. So it piqued my interest in what the scholarship might do to interrogate mumble rap for the sake of hip hop studies. And when I started to, dig through all the research that several of my student research assistants had secured for me and discussed with me, and I named them in the acknowledgments, all 9 of them, I think, I kept thinking this is not an article. Like, what all of the things that I think should be said and all of the things that I want to write can't be contained in an article. So then I said, okay, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to write this book. And so that's sort of how it came to be. It's sort of like, experience in life, observing things, paying attention to things with a scholarly mind and lens, but not only, and then surveying all the literature, the scholarship, and all of the discourse that was available to me, not all of it, but as much of it that I possibly could, and seeing a place for me to enter, when and where I enter, right? And so
Hello.
in doing, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the way I was sort of taught to see scholarship, is like you pay careful attention for a long time to what's being done. And then you think about whether or not it makes sense for you to enter into the conversation. And I did. So I really love that you asked that, because that is how most of my scholarship and public work has happened. And so because of that, even though I look back on things that I've written in the past and go, oh my gosh, like you could tell, I know what I was going through at that time. You know what I mean? I know how I was thinking at that time. All of it makes sense to me still because of that foundation.
Thank you. That's such a thick question.
It is.
With a even thicker answer, thick with at least two C's. But I love learning folks' story of arrival, because I think many people believe, at least I know I did for a number of years, that a book just comes to you. And then I know some folks who open up their writing device, a laptop. I do know someone who uses a typewriter still, but 6 a.m. and they
Period.
go, and for me, that is not the case. And I also appreciate, your mentioning of like taking stock of where you are and the discourse surrounding you, because that leads me into the next question.
Oh, yes.
As someone who loves methods, shout out to the one and only Himika Bhattacharya at Syracuse, who instilled in me a deep love of methods and just being curious in ways that give way to more. I really would love for you to share about your approach to make rappers rap again. When I reflect on reading the text and then putting myself in it, I worked and lived in Atlanta for 5 years.
Right.
Your specific naming of Atlanta is the mumble rap capital, made me chuckle, because I had similar conversations with my students when we were talking about designer
Right.
and, Panda was a
Yeah.
streetwear.
Yes.
Right. And so I'm thinking of Kristian in the 2010s
Yes.
when life felt a little bit lighter. And I would have never thought that I would ever hit purchase on a book specific to mumble rap, as someone who just, when I think lovingly of that time, it's the soundtrack to an extent, right? And for this to be not just a book, but a very sound methodological conversation. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about your approach, how you came to live in that container of discourse analysis. I know we've talked in our previous version that was unrecorded that for me, this felt like a deep sonic texturization of a very unique, but like alive
Yeah.
concept.
No, yes. No, thank you so much for that question, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about something that I also appreciate a lot, which is the methodological. And it allows me to give a very, very, very important shout out to the one,
Oh, on the back.
Dr. Imani Perry, who told me, when after I was pretty sure that I wanted to write a book, but it was early. This was the stage. This was the stage. It was so early. I didn't even have the argument that mumble rap is real hip hop. Like, I wasn't even there yet. Imani told me that it was critical, in her opinion, for me to pin down my methodology first. So I'm thankful to her for that. I just started making a list of all the methodologies that had shown up in my past work and in my teaching. And I landed on discourse analysis. Now, to be fair, and as I write in the introduction, and I have it pulled up because I wanted to just like read something real quick. But I want to give a shout out to Kimbru McLeod, Sammy Aline, Ron Jackson, Elaine Richardson, Geneva Smitherman, and others who took up hip hop in the field of hip hop studies as a discourse, not just as a culture. And people are, free to read more about why I differentiate between discourse and culture for the ways that I do. But here's what I just wanted to read really briefly. To be sure, discourses are highly regulated statements, concepts, technologies, and practices that are, quote, principally organized around practices of exclusion. And when you think about my argument, mumble rap is real hip hop, it is in response to the argument that it is not. So I was thinking about practices of exclusion that were permeating hip hop, right? So then blah, blah, blah. And then I write, therefore, studying discourse necessitates examining regimes of truth with a particular focus on the circumstances and rules that form fields of knowledge. In this way, real hip hop functions like a regime of truth, as it's most often understood as an essence or a uniformly defined and agreed upon set of theories, ontologies, and politics. I, however, situate real hip hop also in quotation marks as something that is what I call a historically constituted discursive claim, a representation, a partial and inconsistent realm of interpretation, a site of constantly contested meanings that are always impure, ambivalent, and ambiguous, which is a radical position, I would argue, for hip hop studies, hip hop generally, right? Because when you think about real hip hop, like I said, it's been understood even within hip hop studies as a fact. We all agree. We all agree. This is what it is. And so in order for me to examine those processes of exclusion to which mumble rap and mumble rappers were being subjected, it became really important for me to think about hip hop primarily as a discourse, not to say that we should never think of it as a culture, just to say for the purposes of my work, the discursive realm allowed me to be comprehensive, not exhaustive, something that I say all the time. It's an aim of mine in everything I do, whether it's presiding over NWSA, teaching, or doing scholarship. So just to wrap up my answer to that, it was so fun to spend so much time in that space, looking at memes, looking at interviews, listening to songs, looking at videos, looking at album covers, and just thinking about how we define things, how we make sense of things, how we, police, if you will, one another, and how and what are some of the implications of that. So that's what I'll say briefly about my methodology, and it got real, and it got real, but it was real fun.
Keep going. Technically, I got the day off, so I want to hear more. Making my brain tingle. I said, I love it. No, I think that first, thank you for reading that piece and helping ground like why this text can sit on a bookshelf under the sociology section at the big box store, but then also an everyday person can pick this up. And I want to be clear, like that distinction is not a binary. We're all of the things at once all the time. But I very much appreciate the intentionality of how you framed this conversation about crisis, mumble rap, when we have
real hip hop,
right? Culture of hip hop, of expression, resistance, and its linkages all around the world. And I also just really appreciate that we're having this conversation right after, well, not right after literally, but we intentionally created space at NWSA 2023 to honor the 50 years of hip hop and keeping the conversation going. And I think that's also a really important element here is that our conference gatherings, I say like ours if I've been here since the first one, but
you've been a member for a really long time.
I was paying the dues. Yeah, just wink, wink. I was like, this is me.
Knock them lashes off with that wink, honey, because.
But our annual convening is where conversations might be beginning for some folks.
Yes.
Might be a continuation or might be an ember that we fan so that we can collectively create words of fire. Shout out to you, Beverly. But thinking just about the threading of how discourse analysis brings into so many questions of classism, capitalism, place, and space, which brings me to my next question. I really love
Yes.
on page 16,
Right after what I just read.
right after you just read, no, I opened my book to follow along,
Yes.
reading Rainbow. Um, I also have this highlighted because we was in the text. That this work requires attending to the conditions of possibility that enabled mumble rap. And I
Yes.
have this underlined twice.
Yes.
Attending to the conditions, because you spend such a beautiful amount of time, which can always be longer, but for the sake of a text, it's got to be concise to whatever degree. If you could talk about the pollination of hip hop and the genealogy, if you will, of mumble rap. You spend good analysis. I say good analysis in the sense of it doesn't feel rushed, and you have robust examples that explains the trajectory of mumble rap, why Atlanta in and of itself is a city that it can be considered the capital of mumble rap, but also why place and space is such an important of the
Yes.
figurative hip hop diaspora.
Yes. Oh my God, thank you for that question. Um, the sentence that follows the one that you read, I just want to read it for people. In this way, I take up what Stuart Hall refers to as Michel Foucault's most radical position, examining the way subjects have been produced within discourse. So it was really important for me because of my experience with mumble rap. I never engaged it and ever had a thought or feeling that it was not real hip hop or that it didn't belong. And so like I said earlier, in being, enmeshed in all this discourse, I was like, this is not real hip hop. This sucks. This is not real hip hop. I was like, damn, how is it that and not to like throw my weight around, but, at the time I was in my early 30s when, I situate Future's Tony Montana as like the kickoff of the era, the subgenre. I'm in my early 30s at the time. And how is it that who has been devoted to hip hop my entire life and who has co-created a career for myself that allows me to study it, how am I experiencing it this way? And it seems like so many people who are thinkers and intellectuals and hip hop legends are seeing it as something that does not belong. So I started getting busy thinking about what might explain my relationship with mumble rap and theirs. And, I think that when you look at the South, and in the third chapter, I make the argument that mumble rap is Southern, and there is where I start to explain the subjugation of mumble rap. The following chapter, I further explain the subjugation of mumble rap when I examine masculinity. But in that third chapter is where I really try to demonstrate for readers that mumble rap is Southern, and that if you are someone who doesn't dig Southern hip hop, you don't care for it, you don't like it, or you only care for a particular kind of Southern hip hop, then yeah, it might stand to reason that you would engage mumble rap in a way that's like, ew. But for me, I was able to show, and what are the 6 regions I look at? I start, obviously, as you pointed out, with Atlanta, because I call Atlanta the mumble rap capital of the world, because so many mumble rappers and their DJs and producers are either from Atlanta, its outskirts, or have lived there for a really long time, like DJ Drama. But then I also examine Virginia, South Florida, the Mid-South, Louisiana, and Houston. And what I do in those chapters, Atlanta, I look at more than one artist. I look at a little bit at Migos, Thug, Gunna a little bit, Lil Baby. In Virginia, I focus on Stay Solid Rocky and SoFlo. I focus on Kodak Black, but I also make mention of XXXTentacion, Ski Mask from South Florida, the Mid-South, Ray Swimmer, Louisiana, Young Boy, and Houston, Travis Scott. And what I do is I show the ways that all of those artists, including many of the DJs and producers, have made discursive claims to the South. Vis-a-vis, simply saying I'm from, Mississippi, and also through hairstyles, clothes, album covers, lyrics, features. And that, again, is where the attention to the discursive, or me situating the work in the discursive space, it was really beautiful because it allowed me to be, again, expansive. So like I'd show, for example, how Young Boy's album cover is an almost photocopy of Juvenile's. to show, like, look at these guys. They're trying to tell you, I'm Southern, I'm Southern, I'm Southern. And I think the reason you don't like them is because of that.
Mm.
To go, just to put a pin in my part of responding to this and see if you have any follow-up, or if you want to go to the next question, the conditions of possibility. What makes mumble rap possible, right? People say, oh, it's so weird. Oh, God, it's not. Ugh, they just do this weird stuff. Part of me attending to the South was to also show that they have been enabled to do that. They have been encouraged to do that by very strange, but also familiar hip hop artists like Pharrell Williams, Missy Elliott, Outkast. When I'm showing, when I'm talking about these weird videos that these young guys have created, I point to weird videos that we've gotten from people like Missy Elliott, where she's taking her head off of her body and setting it over there. When you grow up like that, it shouldn't shock anyone that Young Thug, Gunna, and Lil Baby have this big snake slithering around the Chanel Go Get It video. You don't even know why it's there. You don't know what it's for. And at the end of the video, the snake bites off Lil Baby's head. And that's the end of the video. See, when you grow up in a world where people are doing these fantastic, strange things, you can come into hip hop and take it to another level that's reflective of your experiences as well. So that's why the conditions of possibility were important for me to focus on, because I needed to redirect people's attention back to the South so that I could hopefully make mumble rappers make more sense. Even if people don't like it, I don't care if people like it. I don't need them to listen to Lil Baby if they think of him as a mumble rapper. I don't care. But I need them to not say that he is not real hip hop, or that Thug is not real hip hop, unless they're attending to the conditions of possibility that made a Young Thug possible. And it's people like Andre 3000.
Who was famously booed
By New York City, in New York City, by Salt and Pepper and Kid and Play. See, people talk about the South got something to say, but in serving almost every single authored book on hip hop, what I realized, and I do too, obviously, write about that moment. A lot of people write about that moment where they were booed and they took the stage, and Andre 3000 said the South got something to say. What people don't often write about or demand that people remember is that it was Kid and Play and Salt and Pepper who were presenting the award. And I went back and looked at the footage, because even Outkast included the audio on Chunky Fire. They include that audio at the end of the song. That's Salt and Pepper and Kid and Play going, Outkast. And if you go back and look at the footage, Salt's face was like, Outkast. Okay, so yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because I want people to start saying it was Salt and Pepper and Kid and Play that also participated in that, instead of just like the audience. Oh, there were hip hop legends who were telling us that Outkast was not worthy. And so therefore, why do those same legends get to continue to tell us what real hip hop is without question? A lot of the people that are disparaging mumble rap that I write about are hip hop legends from New York City. My ask of readers is not to dismiss New York City, but to empower yourself to question New York City. They don't always get it right. They didn't with Outkast. So what makes them right about Young Thug? Maybe they are, but we're allowed to ask. We don't have to just accept that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
As a Brooklynite and New Yorker, we take accountability. I mean, was I alive? I was. Was I there? No.
I was little, so you were like probably 2 years old.
I was just learning to I
was 16, 15, I think.
Breathe, and all that fun stuff. But no, I named that because I think when you love something so much that has already been dismissed as not valuable, like I think about Gwen Pugh, like check out While I Wreck It, like her work. Shout out to you, Gwen. And so many others.
Look, shout out to
on the back. I was gonna say right out if you can flip it around, because I got mine open with the notes.
Like, don't lose your spot.
Spot. No, I think about what is hip hop feminism has been a constant question. Is it strong? Is it robust? Does it have a place in the academy? Which isn't the meat of this question or the protein for those of us with different dietary restrictions,
or politics,
hey, but no, this. I so love talking about this book because I feel like there are multiple iterations of me, younger Christian listener person who was, by her dad trying to understand the mixed table. What is it called?
Yes,
Turntable.
yes.
To this day, which I still am not allowed to touch. But you mentioned a couple of things that want me to go backwards in my mind map because I have all these
Yeah.
questions about popular education and artistic expression and how we learn to become or learn to question. But you ended your last kind of response on this concept of like all of us are able to ask the question. There are no fixed experts. I think you mentioned this throughout the book and in some of the talks I've been able to watch, which are the distinction of the old heads and
Yes.
the younger folks. And the conditions that make this possible. I want to draw I want to draw our attention to the beginning of chapter 3, which it features a
Yes.
quote from 21 Savage, which is, I don't feel like nobody who they say mumble rap mumbles. They don't understand my slang or my accent. They're just trying to bring it down. And I wanted to kind of bring us back, but also
Yeah.
this element that you've introduced in this conversation, which is constant dismissiveness of something not being real, degrading it, this particular form of expression and art creation, as not real, robust, not sensical. Because what I found really, I want to say wonderful, like wonderful, amazing, delicious, is how much time you intentionally spend on mental health, on communication, and how it has been couched under disability as an insult. Now, for those of you who have a copy of the book or who are joyously going to
Ah,
oxforduniversity.com, the text includes so many
yeah.
examples of memes and tweets. We can even call them tweets. Are we allowed to call them tweets?
I know. What are we gonna call them?
Are they X's?
X's?
X's that positions mumble rappers and folks who produce music, whether that's the beat, help
Yeah.
with lyricism, the aesthetics, as disabled, as
Yeah.
fundamentally stupid. I'm thinking about when, we had Designer on loop because, once that song hit number one and it'd be on everywhere. And
Exactly.
then Nicki Minaj, who is someone we potentially should not be bringing up given the particular climate, but
Goodness.
Nicki on Queen Radio was like, I believe it was Queen Radio when she said something about, well, isn't Designer in special ed? Isn't he in special ed?
Right.
Wasn't he on the short bus? And everyone in the
Yep.
recording booth or the studio was like laughing with her. So
Yeah.
I'd really love for you to spend some time talking about how you came to the
Yeah.
decision to spend substantial time, but to also
Yeah.
anchor the conversation with so many of thousands memes, images, X's, tweets, whatever they're called,
Right.
about how if you genuinely enjoy mumble rap, you are Homer Simpson reading a book called Am I Disabled? What's up with this filter? But you all hopefully
No, I can see it.
boom. Um, I would just love
Thank
to
you.
talk about that.
Yeah. Well, as I wrote in one of my president's blogs from July on
Mhm.
ableism in Berlin, and I'll comment on that again at our conference next month when we
Ah,
honor the anniversary of the first Disability Pride March and Yoshiko Dar and others advocating so fiercely for ADA, which passed the same year. Disability justice and ableism are my weakest links in terms of when I think about my commitments to understanding and addressing various forms of subjugation and oppression. Disability justice is my weakest link. Ableism is my probably one of my most prized privileges. Not intentionally in this stage of my life, obviously, but I was a kid who, you know, relied heavily on homophobia and ableism when I was fighting. Those were my biggest weapons because all I had was that I thought I was pretty, and a lot of people in my family and community thought I was pretty. Um, I don't consider myself light skinned, but I'm not dark skinned, and so it was like that was what I had. I wasn't an athlete, you know what I mean? I had a 4.0 for a while and I was in honors classes. So R slur was my slur. I'm like, you gonna be what Nikki said about designer, that's the way I would have killed you when we was kids. And so now that I'm older and wiser and I exist in communities that are a lot more attentive to ableism, it forces me and I choose to reflect on those things and ask myself, if where it's potentially showing up in the things I'm teaching about or writing about or talking about, and it was showing up here. I didn't know that at first. It's because there's only so many memes and tweets and stuff like that one person is going to be able to see, right? It is because of the work of my student research assistants. They were out there getting everything. The book and the companion website, HeidiRLewis.com, have all the images in color, the videos, the lyrics, and things like that. If I put everything the students found, it would take up this whole book and there wouldn't be a word from me. So then I had them categorize them, and I asked them, how would you categorize these memes, these tweets, these interview quotes and things? And one of the things that the students did was create a folder and it said ableism. I said, ableism. And of course, there's overlap, right? Because some of this ableism is also anti-Black, right? And we talked about that. And I said, hey, just put them in both then. If you have an anti-Black folder and you have an ableism folder, put them both, put them each in each one so I can see them again and again. And then there were certain memes that were popping up in like 5 of the folders. I was like, okay, you the one. I got to interrogate you. So when I saw the ableism, I said, what the hell? Ableism? How's it ableism? What is ableism? And I opened it. I said, oh my goodness. I said, oh, no. Wow. I said, all right. I feel that is a must because it's showing up. It's showing up a lot. It's not just one meme. I put 3 of them here, and there's more. So it became important for me because I know that ableism is something I have to pay special attention to. Not only that, all of the data that we have available to us tells us that hip hop is still very much Black. A lot of people are like, it's white. White people and the white people, and they do it for the white people. I understand why people make that claim. It's a valid claim when you think about who profits the most.
Yeah.
But when you think about the artistry, from the rappers to the DJs to the fashions to the art exhibits to the college courses to the books, right? When you think about it's predominantly Black. Still, even the Coleman Insight reports on audience, Black people are the people that they have ascertained listen to it the most, buy the merch the most. So when you're talking about a subgenre that's comprised primarily of Black male artists, and a dominant discourse about them is that they're cognitively disabled, and I'm knowing now that most of them are oh, no. That was not going to fly with me. That was not going to fly with me. Because of Outkast, we now know that we ain't got no business saying Southern hip hop is trash. But based on what I'm seeing after my research, we're still doing it. We're still subjugating Southern hip hop. And I'll just say one quick other thing, because you brought up the old heads discourse that I'm so interested in, so much so that the whole first chapter is focused on old heads. The argument is that mumble rappers don't know they old heads, they don't respect they old heads, and so on and so forth. All right, well, if you have a sort of East Coast or even West Coast now elitist mentality about old heads, then they don't. But if you think about Southern hip hop, they absolutely do. They love T.I., they love Jeezy, they love Gucci Mane, they love Wayne, and they fall out with people all the time. They love Trick Daddy. They love NBA Youngboy. Who's your favorite artist? Soulja Slim. If you know Soulja Slim, and I used to love Soulja Slim before he got murdered, Youngboy sound just like him. Like, I don't listen to Youngboy a lot, and I write that. I'm honest about that. Not as much as other people like Migos. But every time I do, I'm like, oh my God, he sounds like Soulja Slim. And he sings a lot. Who sings a lot? Kevin Gates. Where's Kevin Gates from? Louisiana. Where's Youngboy from? Louisiana. So it's the way that they've been disparaged and situated as cognitively disabled, and their fans as well. For me, that was another slick ass way of continuing the subjugation of Southern hip hop. I'm like, what was your original question? I try to think about the original question when I'm talking so I can run it back.
I was with you every step of the way. I was going back to the chapter. I was like, what else did I underline and highlight?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of having questions you don't stick to. When you we're in a good
You're
flow.
better at that than me. I can tell the people that right damn now.
But I know I really do appreciate it because I won't say shocking because I've now known you for almost 2 years.
Right.
Known you longer in terms of your work. Um, for
It's true.
those of you who are not me or Heidi, you would know, or you would not know that we did in fact film a Hot Ones inspired video at the top of Heidi R. Lewis's presidency, and the footage was corrupted.
It was corrupted.
That SD card in the snow. But
But
we had great conversation.
we did, and it meant it was still important,
It
even
was
though
for
it's
me.
just hours.
It
Exactly.
was for me, too. It
That's what
was
it's for. It
I
wasn't
just
for the
got my
people.
sinuses because I was sweating from those hot wings. Couldn't breathe. Heidi was taking nibbles. I
I
went home.
sure was. I was dipping. I was like, "Deek."
Yep, 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 yep,
I
yep,
put
yep.
my lips on that stuff.
Mm-mm. No, but I so appreciate it because it wasn't shocking like I was saying, but it was such a nice
Yeah.
um entry point into making sure that as a listener and a reader, you're even more critical and more aware of the disconscious, subconscious ways that folks are
Yes.
dismissive, get to kind of own this idea of expertise, which you discuss in Rethinking Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies, Volume 2. I read the work. But no, and also because disability um, and being someone who is on the margins through their own disability is oftentimes so normalized as a slur. I mean, we talk about this with I keep saying propensity to myself in my mind, but that's not it. But every time that we talk about white supremacy, it is devolved into, oh, it's mental illness. Or if we're talking about mass shootings, that person was mentally ill. And
Right.
um,
Right.
when we talk about the rise of transphobia, that trans folks and gender nonconforming individuals suffer through mental illness, and it's always there, but not anchored as a particular form of violence when it comes from a non-disabled person, if that makes sense. So I'm not trying to suggest that there are no rich and amazing materials that help us understand the necessity for and the life-giving opportunities of a disability justice framework, but I would not have thought about disability in this particular way as violence and dismissiveness without you purposely kind of juxtaposing the memes with the lyrics. I think about that Joe Budden Migos interview, which is, what is it called? GIFable? GIF? How do you say it?
Oh,
GIF?
well, all right, Jiff, whatever.
Whatever. That
Whatever we
clip that
say.
has gone viral now for
Yeah.
years,
Yep.
with Takeoff, RIP, miss him.
RIP.
Um,
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that the question
Mhm. Yeah.
came from a place of just curiosity, but also a deep appreciation for it because again, it helps me as a reader and a person who listens to hip hop
Yeah.
think differently while you bump
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
think about your life.
And I want to just give a shout out to Moya Bailey, who
Oh,
has a great, yeah, Moya has a great essay that I teach on the relationship between ableism and hip hop. The name is escaping me, but it's in, speaking of rethinking women's and gender studies too, it's in Everyday Women's and Gender Studies, which Catherine Orr and Anne Braithwaite also edited, which is a text that I've often used to frame my intro course. And I really highly recommend it because it is another, it's another contribution to thinking about disability, hip hop, but a lot more depth than what I even do. And I think but the reason I want to give it a shout out is because it's texts like those that gave me the ability to think critically about anti-Blackness and disability justice, hip hop, because it's not simply the case, we just really quickly, we say stuff like crazy, you crazy, right? Like, and Kiese Lehman has a great essay on the use of crazy. I've been told by people I shouldn't use the word crazy. And I know why. But I think that it's important for people to think about Black people in a very particular way when they're thinking about ableism.
Mhm.
And the reason I brought up Moya is because she does that, and also through the lens of hip hop, which is what I try to do too. So yeah.
You see me, I'm adding the book
Thank you.
to my
No, yes. Oh my goodness.
bookshelf order.
I
Like,
love that damn book. Yeah.
gotta add her back in, or not
If
back
they do another edition, my dream is to be in one. I'm like, damn, have I
in.
not written anything that y'all can put in
Yeah,
that book? Yeah. If
man,
you got to ask to be there, you don't need to be there. But I ain't gonna lie. I'll be.
I will always ask, can I come? Is the thought process there? But I especially love this chapter again because, like I've said
Yeah.
ad nauseum at this point, that I continue to take this and try to think differently while I'm listening in real time. But it also reminds me of our collaboration with Mount Holyoke's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion this summer during Pride Month, featuring Dean Spade and Tourmaline. We had a book talk with Tourmaline and Dean. Tourmaline's newest book, which is called Marsha, the Joy and Defiance of Marsha P. Johnson, and the autobiography. But this question also comes from that conversation that we were
Yeah.
fortunate to support, which is her emphasis, her as in Tourmaline, emphasis that Marsha P. Johnson was incoherent at times in her
Yes.
life, that she was frenetic, erratic, other synonyms that we can use here, and her mental health and just overall wellness was always something that gave way to a particular genius. That part of Marsha's brilliance and her dedication to fierce defiance comes from her incoherence. And I think about that in the realm of mumble rap, that part of the realness of hip hop, the wordplay, double entendres, the lyricism. Am I saying the same thing over and over again? The the beat, how they're produced, and the unique ways that we see them as visuals in music videos and performances, to me, is part of that brilliance of incoherence. Maybe not as literal, but
No,
that's
I love that. I love that because it gives me a chance to talk a little bit about chapter 2, which is, I mean, every chapter is my favorite chapter for one reason or another, just like my courses and my kids. It's like, what's your favorite course you teach? All of them for different reasons, or I wouldn't be teaching them. So there's that. Even intro, I'm like, I love intro. Who don't love intro? Like, you get to bring the kids to the field. You don't love that? Like, I love that. Like, it's the bomb. And the second chapter, which is focused on the mumble rap sound, is a favorite of mine because it allows me to address what you just talked about. In this discourse, what's been said is that mumble rap is not real hip hop because it is illegible. And I argue that illegibility is an often subjugated or forgotten cornerstone of real hip hop. I write about the ways that we all, those of us who are older and who, have loved hip hop all our lives, have had elders who didn't consider it real music because it was illegible to them. So it became really curious to me, although not entirely shocking. At first I was shocking. I was like, really? But then I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's been 50 years. So at the time that mumble rap debuted, almost 40. So that's still a long time. So it made sense that people would start to sort of like make rules that
Mhm.
weren't as attentive to particular paths, plural. And I make this point in the book, and I write, if everything was so legible, back in the good old days, why the fuck did we need lyrics books?
Hey.
And that was my favorite part. Every first listen for me, I listened with a lyrics book. I remembered moments of sitting in my room, and I was not a headphones girl. I'm an only child, so I'm real rebellious. I didn't even have headphones on. The whole house don't listen to what I'm listening to, and that's just that on that. And I remember Aquemini when it came out. I remember. And now we have lyrics genius or genius, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, I just think that, well, one of the things I'll say, and I read a little bit about this in the intro. What made that make sense to me, though, the claim that mumble rap is not real hip hop because it's not illegible or it's not legible, was that Barack Obama got elected. Like he'd been elected and he was running for his second term. And everybody was like so obsessed with this sexy, brilliant, articulate black man right around the time that Future is coming out going, I mean, black folks was like, what? It was like the pull your pants up of our generation was like, talk right. And I was like, in the book, I'm like, I think it is very hip hop that right around the time that, due in large part to Barack Obama's ascendance and leadership, when a lot of us, even hip hop, was like, yes, oh God, my president is black, my Lambo is blue, Jay-Z is over there, like, oh my God, this is amazing. I think it is very hip hop for mumble rappers to be like, shut up with all that bullshit. Y'all got gassed. We got gassed. And look what happened to us, nothing. So, no disrespect to the man's entire legacy, but it certainly did not yield the kind of black liberation that many of us behaved ourselves in order to get. Shout out to those of us who didn't behave. I think about the people who don't say, my quote from Sonia Sanchez, we all up for tenure, motherfucker. I look at the people who behaved their way to tenure and didn't get it.
If we're going to talk Collier ranking, we cannot achieve ourselves out of erasure.
So I love it.
To read and
okay. Oh my gosh. Please. I see why they picked that other one, but when for Colin Reeves, we did at my job. We picked that other book. We picked that white book that she got because that other one. Woo. But just to put a pin in that, in addition to thinking about illegibility, I also, in that chapter on the mumble rap sound, think about the DJ and how the DJ came first, the rapper came after. And so if mumble rappers are, in fact, prioritizing beats over lyrics, and I do not think they are, I think that's dishonest nostalgia at work, a term I coined, then they're hearkening back to a hip hop of the old school and the golden age, which I thought people said that they didn't care about or respect. And I also, the subgenre as well. Mumble rap is one of the longest running subgenres hip hop has ever had. And so instead of looking at that as people do as like, oh, they all sound the same. It's like, well, they're very similar, but so were Snoop and Warren G and the Dog Pound. I mean, that's what a subgenre is. It's a manifestation of collectivity, which hip hop has always cared about. So if, you could look at it like they all too similar or they're all the same, or you could take my, offering into consideration and think, wow, like hip hop has always been about collectivity. It's always been about the crew. Look at these guys, valuing that, caring about that, committing to that, and, doing so for such a long period of time. Of course, they are having more falling outs now than when they first kept stepping on the scene over 10 years ago, almost 15. But the way that so many of them have stayed together and make music together and do work together is beautiful. That's what we want, right? We want young black men, young black artists, artists of color in hip hop, if you will, to be doing things together as a crew, as a unit. That's why we had G Unit, Flavor Unit. So when did we decide that a unit was a problem? Well, that's when you get into the second part of the book, which is, it's because they're a bunch of Southerners, and it's because they, wear dresses and nail polish and talk about mental health.
White supremacy every time.
Or and anti-black racism as it shows up within us, because I just want to also say that this book is, for us, it's a hip-hop studies book for hip-hop studies people, hip-hop people. It's not for, anybody can read it and enjoy it. And what I wanted to say earlier was that that's one beautiful thing about methodology. When you focus on that, you can think about the ways that your book can impact a lot of different spaces, as you pointed out. I am a firm believer that if only hip hop studies fuck with the book, that's fine with me. I don't need nobody else to fuck with it. But in focusing on the discursive, I did open up space for those kinds of synergies. For instance, we're doing a session at the conference next month about Amina Wadu, who was accused of being not a real Muslim. Mm-hmm. So we can take my book and allow it, if we want to help us continue to think about those practices of exclusion that even subjugated people inherit and then perpetuate.
Yeah, if something doesn't seem familiar, doesn't fit into a neat structure or binary, oh, well, then it can't be real, it can't be rigorous, it can be useful, or it can be valuable. Like if we take out the concept of use, shout out to you, Sarah Ahmed. Again, I think reading the book, which is also fun because I read it in your voice. But
good.
I'm like, you ate
meant to be.
like you bring up so many different elements of like, so what is this actually saying, doing for us, rather than just a dismissive, this is not legible.
Right.
That you have nothing to say because you're not saying anything that I can connect with or relate to, that concept of incoherence.
Yeah.
Um, and there are so many other parts of this conversation that, I'd love to delve into, but I could talk to you anytime about it. But for the sake
You
of this
sure can.
recording,
You sure
and
can.
for the sake of you reading the book, viewer, because you purchased and supported. I'm thinking about too, these neat binaries and issues
Yeah.
of power that come up. You spend such a great deal of time talking about the conditions, place,
Yeah.
space, but also even with this anchoring in the Obama second term,
Yeah.
and what it meant to be Black, politically Black, but also presenting a particular type of respectability. Also makes me curious about how you grappled with the elements of power and violence that we often associate with hip hop in general,
Oh God,
right?
yes.
And then taking that down to a different thread here, or a connected thread. That a number of the folks that you're talking about and dissecting in terms of their work have perpetuated harm, particularly
Yes.
domestic and intimate partner violence,
Yep.
homophobia, and so many other
Yes.
isms that we can start interjecting in the matrix of oppression. But I'd love for you to spend some time, however your heart takes you through, on this concept of discussing the contributions to the work, the subgenre, the culture, but also the discourse in particular, when
Yeah.
there are folks who are completing sexual assault and harm and violence, especially towards women and non-binary folks, queer folks,
Yeah.
insert,
Yeah.
complicated socio-political identity here.
Yeah. And you know what's wild? I just thought about this for the first time. Every other thing I one of the ways that I make the case that mumble rap is real hip hop by, excavating, if you will, hip hop history and showing whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, right? So, like for instance, um, in the Old Heads chapter, people were really pissed off when Rich Homie Quan didn't know Biggie's lyrics when Kim invited him to perform at the VH1 Hip Hop Honors, and then I reminds people that Lupe Fiasco did the same thing with A Tribe Called Quest lyrics at the VH1 Hip Hop Honors, and the backlash was nowhere near the same. And I argue it's because he's considered lyrical, he's critically acclaimed. So there's a way that there was backlash, but he doubled down even harder. He's like, I don't give a fuck. I didn't even listen to no Tribe Called Quest. I listened to 8 Ball, MJG, Spice. I was like, then why did you say yes to perform? But there's that. I do it for in the chapter that you're talking about. When I'm talking about the ways that mumble rappers adhere to, but also challenge real hip hop masculinity norms, I, remind us that they do so in conversation with their hip hop elders, like Ghetto Boys, who rapped about mental health as well. Last Andre 3000 and others who were aesthetically challenging masculinity norms and things like that. But when I don't do it for the violence, I could have easily been like, okay, well, they ain't the only ones who done been violent. I didn't. And I'm like, did I do that on purpose? Or was that just like an internal, like, don't do it? I didn't want to make the case that that's real hip hop. Like, first of all, like, but one could, and people have
Yeah.
hip hop feminists, as you point out. And I don't consider myself a hip hop feminist, but I'm not conversant with hip hop feminism. And for me, I'm just like a Black feminist, and then hip hop is in there. But I cite them. Obviously, I converse with them, and I give big shouts out to them in the conclusion so hard. But they've written a lot about that, right? So yeah, that's something that, if you're reviewing my book, write about that, because I definitely didn't do that. But what I will say is it was important in a chapter focused on masculinity. And even though it was the chapter that I did not want to write the most, because I get understandably pigeonholed as a gender scholar, I pigeonholed myself. I didn't pigeonhole myself, but I did, right? But it was also the job market. My first job was in feminist and gender studies, so I needed to get with the program in order to do my job well. If I'd ended up in Black studies, it'd probably be different. So I bring them both together all the time. But the focus is because I'm in a feminist and gender studies department. So yay! But quickly, as I was writing the chapter, I was like, oh my God, gender. Because I knew that people were going to not, there were some people in our field that weren't going to look at my chapter on the mumble rap sound. They weren't going to pay attention to my lyrical analysis. They weren't going to pay attention. They were just going to go right to the gender. So that was breaking my heart. But when I wrote it, I was like, oh shit, like this is necessary for this book. There's no way you can write a book about mumble rap and not interrogate the ways that a lot of these artists have challenged masculinity norms as they've also adhered to them, especially because I'm arguing that is one major reason why they get subjugated. So yes, I write about Uzi's violence, alleged violence towards Brittany Burke, Quavo's alleged violence against Sweetie, and so on, and XXX Tentacion's violence against the mother of Gekun, his child, and because it's not appropriate. While I explicitly state that what we will not do is we will not suggest that hip hop is exceptional when it comes to heteronormativity, patriarchy, misogyny, or sexism. To deny that it lives there and is encouraged there to varying degrees would be irresponsible. And I don't like being an irresponsible scholar. So yes, I'm giving them big shouts out for kicking down for taking the torch that was given to them by Kid Cudi and Tupac and Ghetto Boys and running, with mental health and diving into it in ways that we've never seen before, but that they didn't invent. But I'm also like, Ambra, you really got homophobia problems still. You're really homophobic. You are really, word on the street is that you are really, really sexist. Matter of fact, word on the street is that you're a misogynist.
Professionally.
Okay. So see, people could take this work. Because Young Thug just did an interview and I'm like, bruh, if you don't quit trying to defend yourself against that dress for the rest of your life, I'm going to die. He's talking about how if his girl need to go to a therapist, he feels like he hasn't done his job as a man. If his woman. Yes, he said that in an interview. But what that does for me as a scholar, right, is say, and I said this before, I wrote a book. I started a conversation. I had the conversation the way I wanted to, which again, it's comprehensive, but it's not exhaustive. And so what I'm hoping is that people keep hip hop alive instead of lamenting that it's dead all the time, that people keep it alive. And this is one way, is through the scholarship. I think scholarship is hip hop. And I'll tell you this real quick, you're going to laugh because you're going to know who I'm talking about, but a lot of other people won't. There's an OG who reached out to me recently and I said, oh, hey, thank you for your shout out. I admire you since I was a kid. I cite you in the book. And OG was like, I don't even listen to hip hop no more. I mostly listen to like jazz and opera. And I was like,
okay, Questlove.
Now, to be fair, fine. People should enjoy whatever music makes sense to them. At the same time, I'm just like, hip hop deserves to be something more than somebody's phase. It's not a phase for me. I'm not going to mature. I will be like my auntie, rest in peace, Terry Lynn Stewart. She passed away before she even had the opportunity. No, she was 61. She knew everything. Drake, all them. I'm going to be that. If I live till 80, I'm going to be that. I'm going to be the meme that people share. Me and Tony, my husband, the 75-year-olds at the concert. Hip hop is not a phase for me. And I'm sad that for some people, it seems to be this youth rebellious phase. And I still listen to the blues. I've never listened to jazz. I've never listened to opera, but the blues, my dad is a blues musician. I still listen to the blues today, old school and contemporary. And I listen to grunge. I listen to rock. I don't listen to country. My son does, though, so that he brings it to us now. I've always been eclectic with my taste. I read about that in the book. I'm going to listen to all the music. My music was not a phase. And I'm sad that hip hop got treated like just something you do when you were a kid and then you grow up and then you Not for me. I like war music because I work at a predominantly white and wealthy college. So there's not going to be a time in my life that I'm not listening to gangster music because that's the mentality I want to be in when I go to that school where there are a lot of people who would rather me not exist. I need that thug music. I need that music to charge up. So thank you for letting me ramble on about that.
No, I was with you, Heidi, and I was taking notes. I was like, I will ask her about this later because we will be
Mm-hmm.
all day.
Hey,
No, I
look,
really,
we gonna do this.
hey. But I think the question for me comes from a place where I don't listen to the Kodak Blacks and the XX. I never knew how to say that child's name too.
Not
Um, because I met their controversy before I met the music.
oh,
Um, so that's part of it too, right? But
hell yeah.
I will not be putting them on the playlist. They're on the blocked, whatever. But I do, but then to not talk about
Right.
harm erases it. And I think that's part of our own approach, or I say collectively at NWSA, when it comes to the tensions and missteps in the association that have happened, just like in any other place. The more that we work to talk around, the more
Hey,
harm makes it possible. So
yes.
maybe
Thank you.
I'm in a different woo-woo
No,
space
that's so good. I'm glad you brought that up because I struggle with that too. I'm like, I don't,
because
there are
I
going to
think,
be people who take that whatever way they want to, and whatever way people take it, they deserve to take it that way.
yeah, of
Like, as
course.
far as who I focus on and what I don't talk, like, people
Yeah,
deserve to be
because I
like,
think
you write about the, yeah.
yeah, the text in and of itself focuses primarily on men rappers, people who present or are read as masculine. And the whataboutism could be, well, where's the book about women mumble rappers?
Ah,
Then
yes.
is the next question of, well, who are the women mumble
Yeah.
rappers? I can think of point
Yeah.
five.
I
Um,
know, right?
and
Mother Nature bars. Mother Nature was at Hip Hop Literacies at Ohio State this past spring. So was I. I presented on the book. Shout out to them. I'm so thankful to have met them and be in community with them now. And they asked that question in the Q&A, and I simply said the truth for me at the time was that I don't know any. I don't know. And now uh Yachty signed Caribou so I was like, oh my God, like she probably would have been great. And
yeah, we
people might, here's the thing, there might be artists that I didn't know about that people would argue are mumble rappers that I didn't situate as mumble rappers. Here's why. I was focused on the discourse.
mhm.
Women artists were not showing up in the mumble rap discourse, except to say, when people ask them, like Megan Thee Stallion, except to say, we can't be mumble rappers and enjoy the same kind of success. We have to actually rap. Now, I take issue with that because mumble rappers are rapping, and I show that in chapter 2.
Yeah,
But even if you think they're not lyrical, even if you think they're not right, even if you think they're not rapping, I understand her point, and I agree to varying degrees that if a woman got situated as a mumble rapper, she would have even a steeper hill to climb because of the sexism. So
Mhm.
Caribou is going to experience that if one would call her a mumble rapper. I'm not all the way sure because I don't listen to her. I haven't gotten into her yet, but I think she might be someone who is enjoying some mainstream success, popularity, and is signed to a mumble rapper and might be understood as a mumble rapper. So for me, it wasn't even about the fact of the matter, who is a mumble rapper. I went to give a talk recently and there was a student who was like, I don't think so-and-so is a mumble rapper. She mumbled it. She thought I didn't hear, but I did. And it was fine. They were in a small group discussion. I said, for me, just like the mental and emotional health, it's not the fact of, is Young Thug a mumble rapper? Yes or no. The discourse is situating him that way. So therefore he becomes important to my study. So
Mhm.
with the women, they weren't occupying any of that space. So they weren't important to my study. But Mother Nature told me that they could think of something. And I said, God, that's great, because then people could take this and write more,
Hey,
talk more.
what if you did my a counterpart? Or is that the right framing? Do another conversation, an extension of, and yeah, and I think it's important to ask the question because in the beginning, when I did
Absolutely.
not read the whole book, because again, I only had a couple chapters,
Totally.
I was like, Kodak Black, right? We
Yes.
could do that with a lot of things. So this is not meant to be like a
And we need to do
definitive,
that with a lot of things.
like every, because I think academia pushes us to reward
Yes.
whataboutism. Like
And
I
here's
don't,
what I said, Kristian. Oh, sorry, honey. Go
no, no,
ahead.
go
No,
ahead,
no,
go
no.
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, And that becomes like a primary intervention.
Yeah, because it's not there. Therefore, and I feel like, I experienced this at the helm of the association where folks enter the space and are like, this. And I said, beloved, I would love for you to engage with us because you would know that those things do exist. They just don't look or are not couched the way that you are familiar with them. For example, we as in myself, I don't know why I say we, I'm one person.
Associate, because you think of us as a we.
Correct. I do. I'm very much a collectivist person, and I'd like to
Yes.
think I'm a thought partner. But I've just returned home from the Iranti Eje Remembering the Blood conference for the global majority, hosted by Black Girls Guide to Menopause, a conference
Woo!
in Durham, North Carolina, that we endorsed and I supported in real time with Sweat Equity and some resources. So shout out to their team. But I think about how in that space, we're talking about reproductive justice and health, and so many people were like, I'm constantly having to grapple with if it's not there, then there is a problem
Or that you didn't care.
that I don't even, or I don't know about it. Like, so,
That part.
right? So like there is a level of ignorance that
That part.
borders our
That
interaction.
part.
So I
Let me
think
tell you.
yeah, it's important for us, and again, as a reader in a scholarly way, but as a person
Oh,
who listens and considers themselves to have been raised by hip hop aficionados. Shout out to you,
yes.
Contreras, comma, Squares.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you, Dad.
thank you, Scorpio King. You're gonna be like, Christian, why are you telling me my business?
Thank you,
But
Dad.
I'm just bringing this up because the question I think can be a lazy one. But
It is often. It's not always like Mother Nature. It wasn't. They had people
yeah,
in
so
mind and they wondered if I was, because the book wasn't even out when I was there.
yeah, so exclusive information I had, but I think
At
about
period.
this discussion as one that will always invite more and more and more. And so while I, again, will never hit play purposefully on other like I skip the Chris Brown type situation for my particular ethic, I don't expect or lambast any other, well, we'll leave it
It's
there.
I hate to
It's
do that. It's
complicated.
complicated, but it is
Yeah.
because of all the things that we know about how these
But
things work, right? We
what
don't
I
have to
want,
regurgitate
yeah,
that here, but
discredit that my cousin's children, what are they to me? Are they still my cousins? They're like nephews.
yeah. Yeah, I know, right? That's not my family. Yeah.
Extended kin
Period.
love 21 Young Thug, and they are not always on my like
Right.
playlist or on repeat, but I love
Yes.
that they can talk to me about their mental
Right.
health, and
Yes.
they can talk to me and be like, this is where
Yes.
I'm coming from, like,
Yes.
and unload because it is more normalized in their
That's right.
everyday. The soundtrack to their life does not treat mental health or feeling lonely or unwanted, undesired, and like those complicated ways of their
Yes.
journey of coming. So the discourse will always remind us of power in all its
Yeah.
iterations, but it also reminds us of what we are literally saying and making
Yes.
it normal.
And and him too, I'm a hoe to at the slut walk. You feel me? Like those are the things that I felt needed to be interrogated in this large conversation. And what I'll say is a couple things just real quick. I know we need to wrap it up. A couple things. So the whataboutisms. That's why I think it's important to have a clearly articulated mission and vision. For NWSA, it was my strategic plan. For the book, it was my introduction, where I'm saying this is what I'm going to do. So if it's not here, I'm not going to do it. That doesn't mean I don't know about it. I will try to make sometimes I'll try to make mention of or address things in certain other ways, but I'm not covering that. I told you what I was going to do. If you skip that, that's fine, but then don't be mad at me because you skipped my mission statement. Because I fulfill my mission statements almost every time because that's why I do them, so that I can clearly articulate myself to my peoples. So there's that. And then what I'll say too is, like you, I see my various us's as a we. So whereas I may know about something, I may care about something, but I'm not going to address it. But you can, if you want to write an article about caribou or you want to write a book about women mumble rappers, you do it and see it as a partner with mine. Don't simply assign responsibility to me. Take it yourself. That's what I did. I didn't get interested in Lil Wayne rapping about cunnilingus excuse me, when I was interested in that, I asked a friend of mine, Dr. Takia Noramin, why hasn't anybody written about that? And she said, because you're supposed to. So
Hey,
as I matured, I didn't leave hip hop alone. You know what I left alone? Asking other people to do the work that was assigned to me. So if you want to write about something, you go on. Now, that doesn't mean you can't critique my work. I've done it 3 times in this conversation. I done gave 3 layups to anybody who wants to be critical of my book. I gave them to, what were they? I don't know. Go back and listen. You'll see. So there's that. So I see it as a big we, right? You
yeah,
might want me to do a presidential session about something. Why don't you submit a panel about that?
yeah.
You see, so there's the whataboutisms. We get taught that that's a primary intervention. I would argue, and I think you would agree, it is an intervention, but it should at least be one that is in conversation with somebody's work and what they said they are and what they said they would do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have to be careful because then we have the white feminists who are not thinking about race and racism, and then we come with the what about. So it's not to say what about is always a problem, and you didn't. It's just to say, let's think critically about what we're really up to when we're asking. And I think women is a great question that people could ask about my book. And that's why I chose to conclude my book with a conversation about women robbers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, here, there go your women. And I concluded. Now it's brief now, because this is what I said. But it concludes it. So if you read my book cover to cover, the last thing you're going to leave with is how the practices of exclusion that we have subjected mumble rap to, we're doing it again to women. And I want us to think about that. So, boom.
That's a beautiful segue into what you never know with me. Is this the last question? Who knows? But
they can watch it on 2 times speed. That's what I would do.
and a script. Hate to see each other coming.
Hate to
But
see each other.
what you've just named, I think again, like your last chapter, A Note to the Old Heads. I think all of your chapters read like a letter.
Yes.
Rather
Yeah.
than this is my claim, this is my claim, this is my claim, which is not
Yeah.
a bad thing, but again, just your style of communicating.
Right. Mm.
And there's love in the critique. There's also love in the wanting more. And what I appreciate about how you kind of took us from the previous question into this is this concept of elders. And again, I learned at this conference that we endorsed and supported,
Yes.
not all elders, not all older folks are elders. Not all, we say this often, I believe, like not all Black women are feminists. Not all women are feminists, right? So we can take that concept and make it everything. But in terms of wisdom, and protecting a thing, in this case, hip hop, I really, 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 really love this many mentions in different and subtle ways that you make to how Tony, your spouse, supported you. He was a conversation partner, thought partner throughout much of your ideation. Listen to you, I'm sure, read out loud the full piece.
All the time, every word, multiple times.
Your son AJ, and I'm giving you the whole family information, but you make mention too of like exchanging music with Chase, your daughter, and
Yes. Yes.
her watching you in this concept of expertise when it comes to hip hop and mumble rap, and then vice versa, like her creating her own like soundtrack to her life and sharing music with you. So I love how you close, which is very intergenerational, very multi-dimensional, multivocal, parentheses, personal, no, parentheses, personal communication. Heidi R.
Right.
Insert
Heidi R
for
is everywhere in the world.
and I think too, like again, critique is necessary and will always,
Yes.
and it's meant to be a continuation of the conversation. If we were to just look at all of our favorite texts as a standalone, we would never have other iterations. I would have never gotten other folks' perspectives in the work.
That's
and so
right.
you close the text with, there are no finish lines or utopias, but let's not stop co-creating and remaking hip hop just because it might be different from the hip hop we once knew. Let's especially be mindful of our propensity for exceptionalizing and catastrophizing and realize contemporary hip hop is often, if not mostly, congruent with the various iterations we appreciate most. We have every right to be critical and should be, but let's be sure our critiques are rooted in substantial engagement as well as complex understandings of the past and present. If we do, hip hop will never die. Period.
Period. The end.
And what I noticed of many things,
yeah,
also kind of open the book with those same words. You say
they were gonna be in the introduction. I moved them.
yeah, this concept of exceptionalizing and moving into this concept of a crisis. And I would love for you to kind of share that purposefulness around making sure we didn't fall into the oppositional binary trap of this is what hip hop was, this is what it is, and in between is a crisis. So again, crisis in quotation marks.
I don't think there's a crisis. Thank you so much for that question. Real quick, I thought of something I meant to say earlier and didn't. Part of the reason that I interrogate artists like Kodak, Triple X, and so on in this book about mumble rap, because they've occupied so much of the dominant discourse about mumble rap, is for the same reason why I quote Africa Bambaataa. I don't know how to talk about things without interrogating the people who've been instrumental to the thing, even if they've been predators or allegedly or whatever. Like, I think there's a way people can do that and would do that and love that for them and us. But for me, it's like, I don't know how to do that. I do know how to do it. I won't. But yeah, crisis in quotation marks. So when I'm writing about dishonest nostalgia, which I think is fueling a lot of the mumble rap panic, what I do in the book is my answer for that. I think that, we need to slow down and we need to think carefully and we need to remember carefully and we need to think critically and we need to remember critically. We need to engage substantially. Like, there are going to be people, and there already have been, who invite me to talk about the book and who don't read the book. And that's fine, but then you bet not try to go toe to toe with me on my argument because you don't know them. So I'm about to body slam you because you don't even know my argument. So don't be all like, nah. Like, just be like, okay, Heidi, so ask me questions. Be curious, right? Don't try to box because I've been training. You've been on the couch, so I'm gonna whoop that ass. And people have done it. Literally, there's a person, I bullshit you not. There's a person who was like, well, I think the problem with mumble rap is because I think the reason why people don't like mumble rap as opposed to other kinds of rap is because they don't play no instruments.
Huh?
I said, ma'am, look, in my Martin Lawrence voice, lady, ma'am, who the instrument do Big Boy play? I'll wait. Now, of course, we talk about the voice as an instrument, but the mumble rappers use their voice.
Last I checked.
Last I checked, they have a voice and they use it. Whether you just say you don't like it, or like what you said earlier, Kristian, I don't really listen to it. Fine. I'm asking people to be better thinkers and better scholars. And that means not making arguments about things that you have not substantially engaged.
Yeah, of course.
And misremembering things and cherry picking evidence, you see, cherry picking this and that, Remember, we got taught not to do that when we was dissertating. And then somewhere along the way, people just start cherry picking. I'm like, no, we don't do that. We survey the landscape thoroughly. That's why I started working on this book in 2019 and it's not out till now. From January, I think it was 2019, up until I finished the draft in 2024 was research, drafting, revising. 2 years. 1 year I spent reading everything in the world about discourse analysis. 2 additional years I spent reading everything about hip hop. That's just 3 years of reading, not to mention the 1 year of collecting and 2 years of collecting and examining data before I popped out with an argument. So that's what I think we need to do. I don't think you have to like mumble rap, but I think if you're going to make an argument about it, you should be substantially engaged with it and you should be thinking and remembering as critically as possible so that you are not trying to force them to be consistent with a past that wasn't even, or a past that relegates other pasts, like the Southern hip hop past. It's like, okay, maybe they're not consistent with your Biggie Smalls past, but they are consistent with 8-Ball MJG past. Mm-hmm. And Travis Scott, I don't know what else he got to do to be like, Houston.
Yeah, Houston. I think you gave us these chapters that always in different pathways and different examples ask the reader
Yeah,
slash listener, what barometer are you using?
correct.
How are we measuring insert, skill,
Set
intellect,
the terms. What's
goodness?
your terms?
Yeah.
When you define real hip hop, what is it? Because when you say, I think I told you last time we talked, when you didn't record,
Triggered. Yes.
like for instance, Will I Am said that it's trash. He didn't use the phrase mumble rap, but it was right at the popping. Oh my God. Okay, then me too. I'll join you
Yes.
now.
The last time when I didn't record.
I'll join you. Okay. I should have had it on this whole time. But he said hip hop ain't like back when Nas and Rakim with the metaphors and the similes. So to him, I'm taking his argument on his terms.
Mm-hmm.
You said good lyricism is similes and metaphors. So what did I do? I did a lyrical analysis of several mumble rap tracks and found similes and metaphors. But not only that, I found enjambment. See, he didn't use that. See, I know. I looked at the literature, Cheryl Keys and Adam Crims and them, who was like, this is lyricism. And they talk about enjambment. I said, woo! Takeoff do that all the time. Oh, that's what makes his shit like whew, like people think I'm like it's moving you for a reason. And if it's not moving you, it's not moving you. But even if it doesn't move you, if you think great lyricism is similes, metaphors, a lot of syllables, and jamming, I'm like, here. And I'm gonna put this on the screen and I'm gonna shut up because I want motherfucker to know. This is what I'm doing. That's bars. Like I'm like, okay, this is stresses. The stresses are placed. The pauses are placed. Future is the king. Like, what do you want them to do? I don't know what they gotta do. I don't know. You don't wear grills, you don't drink lean, you don't smoke weed. So maybe the sound of it is just bothering you because it's laid back, but they're doing lots of syllables, they're going fast, they're going slow, they're doing tempo, they're everything we've said. So I tried to, so you said, I asked people in every chapter, like, that's what I try to do. I try to take them more seriously than they took my brother. I was like, you said lyricism is this. All right. Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, like why the text just is always to some degree in the back of my mind is because the book is very clearly explicitly about mumble rap, hip hop, discourse, power, representation, expression, and acceptance, and other terms here.
Yeah.
I think it also invites me to think differently about our work at NWSA.
Yes.
This concept of crisis, which is concept and reality. I won't allow any type of interpretation that this is dismissive, but the whataboutisms, the what are we doing, and I think again the book to me is something on any bookshelf because it's written with invitation, and I hope that that level of invitation is something that we never lose. And I have said this many times in a committee meeting and with our members, because I cold call folks. If I can find your phone number in the signature, I'd be like, hi, my name is Kristian. My pronouns are she, her. And I want to make sure that we can be a resource, but that's not here or there. But invitation, because we don't have to keep using the same barometer. We can always be expansive. And we've always found a way. Hip hop has always, to some degree, been labeled not real music, not real artistry.
That's right.
Like when I was taking hip hop feminism with my dad was like, finally, something that I can contribute to this very expensive,
this big old PhD, right.
lengthy education journey. I don't know why I'm doing this because my father's not Italian. He is.
I know he don't even be doing that.
It was not that I. Right. He'd be like, finally, but
there you go.
But
that
I think
seems like him from his pictures.
Always being positioned as not rigorous,
not
real, and this is also applicable to our field. I mean, I participate, communicate, collaborate other eights with our partner sibling academic organizations, and I'm very smug in every meeting because I'm like, all of your top scholars are feminists. We've been dealing with this level of attack and crisis, not to diminish how deeply under fascism and authoritarianism we are navigating, but your concluding chapter is like, yes, there is more, But if I keep leaning into crisis, I completely obscure all of the
Oh my
beautiful
God.
and rich ways of resistance, but also not resistance in the figurative like revolution, but
Wait,
like I'm pushing back because I'm here and
you
I
feel
have
me?
something to say. And
I
I
just think,
really,
and I think it's really interesting that people are tapping out when there's so many women on the scene. Like, and if you don't like that trap shit I love, if you don't like that twerk shit I love, go over there with Dolce and them. They over there. There's so much hip hop music of different shades and flavors. I'm a trap girl. That's
right.
my so anything that's making them six folds bounce, I want to hear it. Anything else, get it over there. Let me tell you something. I follow Vic Mensa. I love Vic Mensa. I really appreciate the way that he is doing the education in an accessible way, a fun way, all that. I don't listen to Vic Mensa.
Yeah, but we
So,
appreciate why
but
this
as a
does.
hip hop scholar, if I'm going to totally relegate Vic Mensa and whoever else I don't listen to the margins or tap out altogether, I need to, like I say in that introduction, no, yeah, the introduction, I need to say, I'm a mumble rap scholar. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm a hip hop scholar. I don't listen to Doechii. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to write, not about her personally, but I don't just write about the things I fuck with. Okay. I don't listen to Trippie Redd. I don't listen to him. And I write about him substantially in the chapter 4. I don't listen to Trippie Redd. We from the same place. I don't listen to him. All that running around, screaming, hollering with the stuff on the face. I don't listen to him. But if I'm gonna write a book about mumble rap and he's occupied the space that he has in that discourse, he better show up in here. And he did. So I just want us to think about like keep hip hop alive. I'm never leaving here. I'm gonna be the OG, and people don't. I'm like, oh my god, I've been waiting to be an OG my whole life. How can I leave hip hop? I'm not an OG, but so many places. I can't even be an OG in women's studies. I'm the president, but I can't even be an OG over here because you got Beverly and them. Like they 30 years older than me. I can't even OG yet here. I can in hip hop though. In hip hop, I'm the Don. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm like you know.
No, I think this is why just coming with curiosity and
Yeah.
just wanting to be generative. Like I've had so many conversations with my dad. So at this point, he's like, I need to get a PhD. I need to be in the spaces. And kudos to him.
That's how my auntie used to be with me.
Right? It's like we have these like we were having these conversations on the front porch, the doorstep, the kitchen table while we were driving, this is again, as I mentioned when we opened, like the journey of arrival for you for the text is not because you were like, something is happening here. That's part of
Right.
it, but it was, I'm listening, I'm getting
I'm
irritated,
here.
I'm excited, I'm here, I'm present in all ways. And I want to just wrap us up with
Yep.
maybe a big question, but who knows? Who knows?
Let's see.
One of my favorite chapters is chapter 5, which is your interview with Luke.
Ah, drama.
You just got to embrace the youth in all aspects! Exclamation point. So shout out to Aisha Shaida Simmons for
Yep.
making sure the connection could happen with all her beautiful generosity and just, the everythingness of her.
For people who don't know, DJ Drama is Aisha Shahida Simmons' brother, and through my friendship with her is how I got the interview.
Yes,
Yeah.
kinship, threading
Period.
connections. But I love this interview. I think if I could listen to it, that'd be great. So if you want to slide me that audio file.
It's on my website.
Oh
It's
yeah,
on the website.
it is. I'm such a loser. But I love the discussion, because part of what you talk about like at length and specifically is the lifetime of the artist. Um,
Yes.
the idea that hip hop goes through eras, the idea that an artist goes through eras, and that once they've made their contribution, they're supposed to just kind of be over here, pop
Right.
up for an interview and be like, in my day, da, 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 da.
Right. Right.
Right? And then lean into that binary of like elders and the young people, which is why I think the chapter got to embrace the youth in all aspects.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So
If you want to, yeah.
if you should, but while we're on the eve
Yeah.
of our 45th annual conference,
Ah!
which is your last conference as president, I think about that concept, the lifetime of the artist, without
Yeah.
really having a beginning or an ending,
Right.
applicable to you, applicable to all of us, right? Like there are always new beginnings in an ending, good or bad, and vice versa. So I am curious for you, Madam President, 22nd Association President, as we're gearing towards our annual convening in San Juan Boriquen, Puerto Rico. I'm curious for you, what are maybe your top 3 songs that are getting you together to close
Yes.
out your 2-year presidential term?
Okay.
Yeah, I just threw that in there because this wasn't on
Yeah,
our
no,
last
damn
recording.
it. All right.
Off the dome.
So I gotta off the dome, but I don't be knowing the names of songs. So if I
Dang
look
it.
at my
I will
phone,
go.
you know what I mean? It's okay. So I I really am loving Offset album. And I didn't care for his last solo offering, so my hopes were down. So it could be that. But and there's a song Proud of Myself. It's like Prada the designer, but it's Proud of whatever. Featuring Tizo Touchdown, who I think has a beautiful voice and who's a weirdo. Like he's the one who wears the nails in his hair, like nail polish, all that shit. He's on Lotto's album, but everybody fuck with him though. Like, and I love that song because I think it's vulnerable. I think it's, I mean, I just love it how it sounds, but I think it's vulnerable. I think it's honest and, you know, in a jam. I am listening a lot to Cardi's album. Shout out to the divorced, almost divorced. Yeah. I wish I could have been like their OG. They would be together and nobody would have cheated on me. But whatever. They don't listen to me. No. But I'm really loving her album. And in particular, I really love that sex song on there.
Which one?
Not the one that you would do, you know, like it's for. You gotta make me look it up because I told you I don't know the names of the shit. It's that one.
Is it for you about
Gonna get on my veil. That one. Yes, that one. On my back. Gonna put it on my back. That shit gone. That shit
We
gone.
harmonized. La, la, la. Yes.
Listen,
Oh, there
listen,
you go.
listen. And Jid's album right now I'm listening to a lot as well. And I'm that one song, Baby, would you be honest? Yeah, let me honest. You know, we love me honest. I think it's called Vibing or some shit. That shit, you got to smoke and just go somewhere with that one. Woo! Because you want to know why? I put a comment on a post on Facebook and I deleted it because I'd be like, I'm tired of this in my world. Like people like, I'm like, I'm over that. He is, I would argue, the living birth child of Andre 3000 and Big Boy in the same body. Like he's both of them and then his own self, you know what I mean? And that song is just given so much like old school, but for today outcast, like where it's just like a smoke vibe song. So that's what I'm listening to a lot of other shit, but that's what keeps popping up for me in terms of rap and the now, and I'm having so much fun. And these motherfuckers are still problematic, and they say stuff in interviews that make you be like, "Oh, Jesus," or they say stuff in songs, and you be like, "Oh, why are we still talking that way?" And I just love them, and I see where we've come, and I know that in order for us to keep being, I need to be here. Like I said, I look at these kids like they my little brothers, nephews now, nieces. I'm like, if I got nieces and nephews who say problematic shit and do, you know what I mean? So I'm just still here being like, I love that track, but I'm gonna need you to
I
think
hear
about
you.
not saying that because that's hurtful to some people. If you don't care, just say you don't care, but I think you do care. So cut it the fuck out.
Yeah.
Offset talking about somebody don't cook or clean. Hell, you got enough money, get a chef.
That wasn't my ministry. My ministry was to just hit order on the app
Do you cook, nigga? Because I don't think you
and
do.
to support local businesses.
Okay, with your rich ass. You always talking about how much money you got, the jewelry, buy food. And you know, for instance, I'm gonna keep it real. He got a song that I fuck with, and he say, what's 6 figures? That's all I make. Low end, as I wrote in my blog.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts my feelings when rappers are still very much committed to making people like me feel like they are not doing a good enough job, like they don't have enough. That bothers me. My class consciousness is ruthless right now. So yeah, so it's not like I'm listening to every album like
Yeah.
with my consciousness turned off. But I know why somebody like Offset and Cardi and Jay and Beyonce have made it their business to become wealthy people. I see it as my duty to be the Black feminist voice out here saying, y'all, you don't need it. It's making other people poor. Other people aren't poor because they lazy. Other people, or is that the case for your broke ass grandma that you just had that 100th birthday party? Is the bitch lazy? Because that's what your music is saying. Your music is saying that your grandma could have been you, but she wasn't smart as you. She wasn't strong as you. She didn't work hard as you. You wouldn't say that. But people like you, so hip hop, I'm not leaving because we have work to do.
When Beyonce said you stay Ramada, and I said, okay, and that's
And
what I do. And you know,
and
I am putting Beyonce's great, 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 great grandchildren
okay,
through their music lessons with the way
do
I
their music lessons.
give her.
You don't even have you girl. We so yes, I'm sorry to go all into that. Okay, we 90 minutes. We have to stop. Y'all better be watching this on 1.5 speed minute. I talk fast though, so you might need to slow him down when I talk. But I want to be in a space with Black people doing cool stuff that need me and I need them. Like they need me for the consciousness. I need them for the artistry. And we gonna
Yeah.
rumble and tumble. I wish I knew them. Like I wish I was the one like Mark Lamont Hill on Joe Budden's you know what I mean? Like I'm never going anywhere because I love this space. So if it wasn't for hip hop, I wouldn't be a full professor at a predominantly white wealthy college where I've done and said things that you can't even believe I've come back from. It's because partly because hip hop. That's why I dedicate the book to hip hop and Black feminism. I dedicate the book to hip hop. Sorry, Black feminism is an acknowledgement though.
It is. It is.
But
It
hip
is.
hop is
That's so
that's where people are like, how do you get through the day? Hip hop, like
yeah. I
because
hear you.
I know how to fight.
We all have our rituals to some degree, and our life-giving resources. And I think also part of this conversation, as it took its many twists and turns for
Yes,
its second go around, is a great example as to why we have this mini podcast space, because it's quite easy for us to talk about feminisms in abstraction and write really beautiful book chapters that are necessary and are also invitations to be more curious and more critical about how we show up in the world as we fight to make other worlds possible. You know, Octavia Butler, there's nothing new under the sun, but there are other suns. So how do we find those other suns or feel the warmth of those suns? Now we're getting poetic, but the conversation is meant to have us take stock of that in-between space, the abstraction, and then how we show up aiming to live feminist life, if that is an aim for you. And so I am very grateful that you
thank
have
you.
spent now 7 hours with me discussing Make Rappers Rap Again, Interrogating the Mumble Rap Crisis by our 22nd Association President, Heidi R. Lewis. This again is published under Oxford University Press. It is the first publication under the Theorizing African American Music series, and there are more great texts to come. Now, if you are with us, because I assume you found this conversation so delicious, and you know I'm long-winded if you are reading them newsletters and not hitting skip. And guess what? We can tell when you don't open them. And I don't take it personally. But when you are with us, hopefully safely landing in San Juan, Puerto Rico for our 45th annual conference convening and honor song, Feminist Struggles, Feminist Victories, you will have a chance to, guess what? Get a free copy
Come
of
say hi.
text. Come say hi to President Lewis. Stay tuned in a newsletter, on our social media platforms and communications on how you can spend time with her at Lobby Lit, how you can connect with her and get a signed copy via purchase at our opening grounding plenary and presidential address on Friday evening at 7 p.m. A little birdie told me that there is a full catering offering to go with that conversation celebration, and that little birdie is
What
me.
I heard.
I told me, and I'm telling you.
That's
But
what I
thank you
heard.
so much, Heidi, for spending time with me, for being so thoughtful about making sure this was a long-term conversation between us.
Yes.
reader, but also for being so gracious in talking with me about how this book is anchored in our feminist praxis, not just theoretically trying to interrogate, but really trying to make space. So for the viewers, thank you so much for being with us. And for the
Thank y'all.
galvanized, I hope to see and read your conversation starter in your book. Thank you very much, and we'll see you when we see you.